Well, welcome to Streaming Star Wars, the Friday Night Live Star Wars conversation. We kind of think of this as Star Wars sports talk type of conversation. I'm Pete Fletcher. I am joined, as always, by my good friend Nick Milkey and Chris Ryan's. Boys, how are we doing on this Friday night? Boys,
he's thinking about it. He's winding up to come up with a really good response. I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Well, I'm excited for this show, and I'm gonna push my enthusiasm off onto Chris just in case he didn't bring any.
Yeah, we should kind of both get some enthusiasm over there. So, look at does your mic working? What's going on there, Chris? How are you?
Yes.
There he is.
Welcome aboard. So, hey, for those of you who don't know, we do this every Friday night. If you're joining us because you saw somebody retweet it, like our special, one of our special guests tonight. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But before we do, let me pass it over to my good buddy Nick to give us a little bit, just a little housekeeping. We don't have to go nuts tonight.
Just a little housekeeping. We do that every week. I'd say the biggest housekeeping thing we normally try to hit every week is atgcast.com. You can go there. You can find out about Podcast of the Wills, Around the Galaxy, more about this show. You can buy merch. You can join our Patreon. You know, we shill for ourselves. We not only get accused of being shills, but we shill for ourselves. So we've got merch, we've got t-shirts, we've got coffee mugs and all that crap that you don't need, but we want you to buy and enjoy. But we also have a Facebook page. That's our new, kind of push, facebook.com/streaming Star Wars. If you go to that, join up. We do Did You Know Facts of the Day. Pete puts together really good graphics of different Did You Know stuff. Trying to engage in that Facebook community, which we haven't really paid a lot of attention to. We have got like 122 followers right now on that page. And we said when we got to 150, we're going to give away some stuff. So we're not too far away. If you're not following that already, definitely go check that out. Facebook.com/streaming Star Wars. And we've got our friends hanging out in the live chat. I see Danny. Danny hasn't been here for a little bit, but he's recovering from a fall on the ice. So Star Wars Escape, you're in the right place, Danny. Hope you're healing. I see Jeff. I see Raven. I see Sean. I see JD, Bright Suns Media. Woo. Dale's here. Lots of friends hanging out. Glad to see y'all. Excited for everybody else that is also going to be joining us tonight. The other thing that we do to kick off any of these shows is we offer a toast at the beginning of the week or the beginning of the show. We decided to theme these toasts a little bit. So tonight we are going to toast to an anniversary that we missed just by like a day or two last week with this show. I believe it was on October 30th, celebrated 10 years of the Disney acquisition of Star Wars.
Yes, sir.
It's a big deal, whether you like it, whether you don't, whether you do, wherever you fall in that spectrum. I ran a couple of numbers just to give us something to point to tonight. In 10 years, since Disney has acquired Star Wars, we have gotten 5 movies. We have gotten 17 different series. That includes animation, micro animation, which is like Galaxies of Adventure, that kind of stuff, live action shows, plus the Jedi Temple Challenge game show.
Yes.
So 17 series all in that time, plus 4 shows still in active development.
Wow.
Also 6 documentary series between the different gallery versions, the Obi-Wan, the biomes, the sound one. And then I included Light and Magic in that because that is very, Star Wars connected, certainly.
Sure. Yeah.
So all of that in just 10 years. So for those of you that said this was a big flop and a terrible idea, I hate to disappoint you, but it's worked out pretty well.
It seems to be.
So tonight we're going to raise our glass to 10 years of Disney Star Wars. And we also decided we would try out the toast that we picked up a couple of weeks ago in Andor. So I'm going to say Sagrona, and then the follow-up is Sagrona Tima. So Sagrona, boys.
Sagrona Tima. Happy Star Wars. Woo.
Ooh, a whole decade of shilling.
A whole decade. And those checks still haven't made it to my house.
I am waiting for them. I
Still
check
waiting.
the mailbox every day, not a single one.
Nothing
But
Nothing
we we have some other friends hanging out with us. We got one we're going to bring in right now. Nick, why don't you introduce our very special co-host for the evening?
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to welcome back to a show that I am hosting and co-hosting, Corey Ryan Forster. If you follow Corey on Twitter, you know that he is a brilliant comedian, a brilliant writer. You may know him as the Buttercream Dream if you don't know who Corey Ryan Forster is. One of my favorite people. He came on Podcast of the Wills, 6 or 8 months ago, and we had a blast. Like, we went for 2 hours. We could have gone a lot longer, and I finally had to let him go. So I thought, where else can I bring him in? And tonight was a great opportunity. I've been actually blowing him up for a couple of weeks trying to get him on, and we just hadn't worked out. But this week, immediately when I emailed, he said, yes, done, in. So I am thrilled to welcome our good friend, Corey Ryan Forster, back to the show.
Pete, Nick, Chris, Sagrona Tima, everybody.
How are you doing, man?
Oh, man, I am wonderful. I just got through binging Andor, and I'll tell you why. I started it when it first came out, and I was enjoying it, but then I got caught up in life. Just found I was going to be a dad, and I had a bunch of appointments I had to go to.
Yes,
and then y'all email. You're right. I have been blowing you off for weeks. I'll admit it. Hold on, I'm not in frame here. I've been blowing you off for weeks, and I told my wife, I said, the next time they email, I don't care what I have going on. I'm going on because I love talking Star Wars, and I can't keep saying that I love talking Star Wars and then not actively talk Star Wars. So I was like, I don't care what I got going on. I'm going. So y'all emailed me. I immediately replied yes. And then y'all were like, we're going to talk about episode 9 of Andor. And I was like, hell yeah, I can't wait. And then I clicked send, and I was like, I have not watched Andor at all. So I went to the park today, and I took my phone and I put it on my little tripod, and I walked 20 miles and watched all of Andor.
Whoa. Holy cow.
It is all fresh in my noggin. I mean, I don't know if my retention's that good, but I'm dedicated.
Well, who knew that Andor was also an exercise program? A lot of people don't know that. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Ask your doctor if Andor is right for you.
20 miles or walking the length of the London Bridge 113 times. I did the math.
Yeah, you did. And see, that's why we appreciate you. And that's the kind of quality you bring to everything that you do. Real quick, just in case, and I'd be shocked if we did, but just in case we have any viewers who aren't familiar with you, give us the quick 411 on who Corey is.
I am a comedian. I've been doing stand-up for 18 years, unfortunately. But now I focus mainly on internet stuff on account of I'm trying to stay home. And when I ain't got the kid yet, but it's on its way. So I'm at home baby-proofing the house and stuff. So I'm focusing more on writing. I just wrote a new book. I'll let y'all all know when that's going to come out. But you can find me at parttimefunnyman.com. That is my Substack. It is $5 a month. But if you cannot afford it, I will comp you for free. Just email buttercreamcorey@gmail.com. I'll take care of you. There's bonus podcasts, there's essays, there's videos, there's all sorts of fun stuff that I do. So that's pretty much all I'm going to care about for the next couple years.
No doubt. And you are a content machine. I can say that between, the well-read comedy stuff that you do with putting on airs with you and Trey. Like, there's so many fun things. I watched an episode not too long ago where you talk about the Biltmore, because I go to Asheville all the time and I love the Biltmore estate. But also, and this is another fun one that I really have enjoyed watching, you watched House of the Dragon and you did review episodes with your sister. And those are so much fun to watch y'all do that show.
Yes, Little House of the Dragon is me and my sister's House of the Dragon podcast. You can find that at watchpoa.com or on the Putting on Airs podcast feed. We had a blast, and my sister had never done any type of podcast before, and I wanted to do something because Putting on Airs, for those of you that don't know, is a podcast where two hillbillies, me and Trey Crowder, talk about fancy things and like European history and the Queen and all that stuff. And I was like, this is a relatively new podcast, and I want to do something extra to promote it. And I was like, hey, if we jump on the Game of Thrones bandwagon, that'll probably. And Trey was like, I don't have time. And I was like, fine, I'll do it by myself. And he's like, you are not capable of doing anything by yourself. And so I talked my sister into it, and she's like, okay, I'll do it, but I'm a mother and my daughter goes to a Christian elementary school, so we have to be clean. So I wore the edit button out, baby,
He
and I
did.
finally did something. I say G-rated, but like just because of how House of the Dragon is, like it's still some adult content. But we had a blast, and I think me and her are about to start a new podcast together, like a movie
That's
podcast.
outstanding.
Nice.
That's
That's
awesome.
a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Well, cool. So yeah, we do. I would love to talk House of Dragon with you for an hour, but we're gonna hit Andor. I want to turn it over to our good friend Chris to kind of walk us through where we want to talk about. This episode. Like we've said it before, and look, I don't want to sound like that guy, but it's Friday. It's been 2 days since the episode came out, so every other podcast, every other show has given you their sort of recap. We're gonna focus in a little bit here. Chris, where do you want to go today with this?
Well, I'm going to say something that I've only said once before, and that's maybe 15 minutes ago. And that is the implication of perception. Each character in the show, like I haven't trusted fully a character yet. At first, I would say probably Dedra was a character that I trusted. And as the show went on, like I rooted for her when she was like had her she had to prove herself to this room of dudes with the ISB, and prove you can tell that she was someone who is like she's like a detective, she's a cop, and she's trying to get to the root of the problem. And I'm rooting for her to get to the root of the problem. Then I'm like, oh, she's Imperial, I should not be rooting for her, but I was. And then over the past 2 episodes, I was just like,
Yeah,
no, you're a horrible person. You're a horrible person.
yeah.
So I mean, and that's what I love. I love this duality with these characters throughout this entire series. Like we all had our thoughts on what's the kid's name who got crushed by money?
Nemec.
Nemec. Yep.
Everyone. There's no one who I can fully trust. Not even Cassian. Even though we know where he goes, we know what his end game is, but it's tough. It's tough, and just seeing these characters change, not so much like night and day, but it's like this gradual, well-written change, and I am really enjoying that. Dedra has definitely broken my heart. Cyril.
Yeah. He was people
Cyril
were pitying him, right? But
is Cyril the milk toast guy that was also in okay, and because he was in Poldark, and so I hated him in Poldark, and so that carried over to here.
Yeah.
And Dedra's the blonde, right? Again,
yes.
I've just been, that's my retention. Yeah. It is weird because I understand what you were saying. It's like sometimes you're like, oh, get it, girl. You detect stuff. But then you're like, wait, hold on just a second. She's with the Nazis. Like I shouldn't be. But it's really weird too, because like when you see all these characters like, Andor and Saw Gerrera or whatever, you're rooting for them because you as a viewer get to see the entire thing, their causes, what the Empire's doing. But then it's also like, man, if we were just people who watched the Star Wars equivalent of Fox News or CNN or whatever, we would 100% think these people were terrorists.
Absolutely.
Like if this was happening, this stuff does happen all the time, and we just look at them and we're like, oh man, there was an uprising today. Well, that's horrible. But like seeing it from this point of view is wonderful. But I've always said, boo Empire.
That's right.
You've never been pro Empire?
Never been pro Empire. No.
Now I'm pro Empire when it comes to their stuff.
Oh yeah, their stuff's cool.
That's about it.
Yeah,
that's about it. Cyril is someone who, even in this episode, I was like, oh, sir, I need you to calm down. I need you to dial it back a little bit. But part of me is like I felt he was inspired and wanting to, like, he's like, oh, this is where I should be in life, and this and that. And it's just it like I felt bad for him that he got shut down, but I'm still like, he needed to be shut down because he laid on like way too much mayo on that sandwich. Like he really went for it, and it was unsettling. It was pretty unsettling.
Well, there's been, I think this episode also had all these sort of like surprise revelations, but not like, not like a massive twist, like, oh my God, it looks like, Luthen is actually Grand Moff Tarkin's son, nothing like that, right? Nothing like those big Easter egg kind of twists.
Right.
But when they unveiled things like Vel being related to Mon Mothma, when they when it turned out that Cyril was standing outside ISB waiting for her to come by, it was no longer, oh man, this guy got the wrong end of the stick. It's like, oh man, this guy's gonna strap a bomb to himself because
this guy's a creeper. Like there's a lot of
he's a very much on that extreme for sure. Yeah.
I still think that he's going to be I think he's going to get shut down on every angle as far as the government goes, as far as the empire goes. One of my theories was him joining the rebellion.
Yeah.
And that could happen. And I mean, we know there's some messed up people on both sides, of course.
Sure.
So he could be one of those stalking weirdo rebellion.
He could yeah. But he could end up accidentally or purposefully ending up joining because he's got nothing else, right? And so he becomes no more or less of a pawn than anybody else. One of the things that got me fried a couple of weeks ago when I talked about the differences between Cyril and Nemec, right, or the lack of differences. I mean, we're in a spot here where if Cyril does go over to the rebellion, he's going to be the crazy guy, right? He's going to be he could go partisan, right? He could.
He needs to be with Saul.
Yeah, him and
you
Saw
need crazy in a rebellion, baby. I think he's perfect. He's gonna snap. You know what I mean? You can see it, like when he was talking to her on the train station or whatever it was that they were on. That's another thing I love about this show. Everything feels like really grounded. Like the scene where like Cyril and his mom are like having lunch in their house. It almost felt non-Star Wars, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like we're so used to like the old Star Wars where it's like there's holograms everywhere and people are playing chess with monsters and stuff. But that just looked like if you'd have just showed me that scene and said, "What show is this in?" I don't know that I would have said Star Wars. It just looked like a mom and a frustrated child having lunch and getting criticized about his shirt. We've all been there.
All been there.
Yeah. Like I said it. Yeah, like I said to Nick and Pete a couple weeks back, is it like this show? I explained like what I thought about the Dark Knight series, Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, and that is a crime story with a Batman skin on it,
right?
Whereas this is a story of revolution and a spy story with a Star Wars skin on it. So
I love that.
And that's like I had to keep reminding myself multiple times while watching this series. Oh, this is Star Wars, right. Yeah. Oh yeah, like there's no space wizards, there's no lightsabers, there's no force, there's no, this and that. And I don't want it. I do not want any of that in this series. So hopefully
there wasn't one single blaster shot in this episode. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like again, if you just dropped one of my buddies that doesn't know anything about Star Wars, and he would not have thought this was Star Wars. And I know that sounds like a criticism, but it's not. Like I think that's really cool. Like it was so well written, and it like you said, it didn't matter. It's a spy thriller, it's a political thriller, and it just happens to be set in this universe that we all love.
Yeah.
And I've said it a couple of times. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Pete.
No, please go for it.
I was just gonna say, and I've said a couple of times as well, if I could like get my wife to watch this show and just not have the opening credit part where it says Star Wars on the screen
for 9 minutes. For 9 minutes, it says that. This is the longest intro I've ever seen in my life, even on Disney Plus. Excuse me for ranting; it's what I'm known for. But if you listen, even when you click, if you add a feature that says skip intro, Disney or Lucas or whoever is sitting here listening, it should skip the intro. All it does is skip a little bit of it, and then you still have to wait for a second while it flashes Andor at you for 45 seconds. So I hit the go forward 10, still not done. Go forward 10, still not done. Go forward 10. Oh crap! Now I missed something. Cyril crying about something. I got to go back.
Yep. Love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's 100% true. But yeah, if I could get her to suspend even just the knowledge in her head that this was a Star Wars thing, she would love this show, because I know the kind of shows that we watch together, which is not everything, but like a good spy drama, whether it was Jack Ryan or The Night Manager or some of those kinds of things, like it would hit that button where she'd be like, oh, this is a good show.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, isn't that a Star Wars ship? Like, pretty quickly she would gravitate. I haven't tried the experiment yet, but one day.
Well, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, I was going to say, when I was talking to my coworkers today, and we said with absolute comfortability, this is the best show on TV or streaming or anything like that. It is literally the best show, and not just because House of Dragons over, Ring of Power is over. It was better than those shows too. But it's amazing how a Star Wars show, and not trying to put down Star Wars, but a sci-fi fantasy show is literally like the best written show out right now. It's amazing.
And I think that's one of the things that makes this so interesting and such a challenge. And why don't we transition in just a moment to that conversation about how this show is hitting people that are different than three of the four of us on the screen. No offense, Corey, but I don't think you're as much of a deep nerd as we are, obviously. But you have other things you're nerdy about, and that's awesome. But you're definitely a Star Wars fan.
That's the reason that I can't be. I've thought about it, and I know I want to save a lot of this for the normies and nerds part. But I like about 15 different things passionately. But when you like 15 different things passionately, you actually can't even like any of them passionately because there's not enough time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Exactly.
I love
exactly.
That.
Well, why don't we take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna have my dad, who is like the normie that I reference all the time, who got me into Star Wars, got me into writing, got me into all this stuff. He's been on the show before. I know a lot of you love him, but we're going to take a real quick break. And when we come back, we're going to hit that Normies and Nerds conversation.
This is Clanker.
And I am MK0.
And we're here to tell you about Geek John Toys and Collectibles. What the hell is a John?
John is a slang term that is commonly used in the eastern United States city of Philadelphia, meaning virtually anything.
Ah, so nerdy stuff then.
I would assume so. Please continue.
Right. Geek John Toys and Collectibles is your pop culture destination for all the plastic crack you're addicted to. From action figures to comic books, from Funko Pops to high-end merch, they have the stuff from all the major and indie companies alike. Check out their eBay store to see their wide range of items.
Find them on their eBay store at ebay.com/USR/GeekJohnOutpost or email them at geekjohnoutpost@gmail.com.
Geek John, these are the Johns you're looking for. Oh my maker, I can't believe they made me say that.
Well, welcome back. We are now joined on screen by, if he looks like me, it's because he's my dad, Mr. Randy Fletcher. Randy, how are you doing? I'm saying Randy. It's weird to call you that. So I'm just going to go, because I feel like if I was like, Daddy, that would be weird too. So I'm just going to, how are you, Dad?
I am well. How are you guys?
I think we're
We're
doing
doing
all right.
excellent.
Good.
Glad to see you again. Always glad to share the screen with you.
And your guest, Corey?
Yes.
How are you?
Fine. You can't fool me. I've never heard a hillbilly nerd before, but I have tonight. And you are it. You are it. You're a nerd, and you're disguising the nerddom with that hillbilly accent.
Man, I have never been so proud to be called something in my life. That is wonderful.
Hashtag hillbilly nerd. There it is.
Yeah,
There it
There
is.
it is. Well, we wanted to dig in. So we had talked about a week or two ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago when Parrot Analytics had come out and said that the Andor show was failing, that the numbers were poor. And then the day we were going to talk about that, they then said, oh, sorry, the numbers aren't really as bad as we thought they were. However, what has happened is there's been this really interesting conversation going on around Andor, around this show. And this sort of the reason we wanted to have sort of the casual fan, the normies along with us, because there's different perceptions. So a really interesting example of the way the internet influences people. I was talking to a good friend of mine the other day. We were talking about different shows to stream, and I said, well, what about Lord of the Rings? And he said, well, I heard that was bad. And I know he loves Lord of the Rings. I'm pretty sure he would love the Rings of Power, but the influence of conversation about shows is starting to take effect. But there's also something very different about Andor. We talked a little bit about it at the top in the previous conversation. It plays very different, and it's not necessarily for everyone. So my dad wrote a guest blog on the atgcast.com website where he talked about 8 reasons why it may not be as successful. But let me just start the conversation by asking you, Dad, what as a casual fan, how is this show hitting you, and why, sort of top level, what do you think is the number one reason why this show may be hitting people a little bit differently?
Differently in what way? The main reason I think it's different is because the eighth, the whatever on my list, the eighth example on my list was the fact that I was always under the impression that the reason why the other live action shows were doing so well on Disney Plus was because dads like yourself and 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 9-year-olds were sitting together watching these shows. And now Andor comes along, and this is the first show where the 10-year-old is going to watch about 5 minutes of it and say, "Oh, I'm out of here. Nothing here for me."
Yep.
And yet, according to the figures or the analysis that you gave tonight from this source, whoever it happens to be, evidently Andor is doing as well as the other live action shows.
Yeah.
I have to be honest and say that mystifies me.
Well, and what's really interesting is there is no standardized way of measuring these shows at this point. And the 10-year-old thing is 100% correct. I mean, Nick and I and you hung out with my 10-year-old son Jack at Star Wars Celebration, and he was interested in Andor there when he saw the preview. Honestly, he hasn't watched more than the first 10 minutes, and that was it. He hasn't asked me when it's on. He just doesn't. He's not into it.
What's there for him though?
Well, that's the question. I'm not seeing it. And honestly, it's not written for the 12-year-old pew pew at this point, right?
I mean, dude, when I was a kid, if you'd have showed me Star Wars and took out the lightsabers and the Force and the Wookiees, I wouldn't have been in either. I don't think. I mean, I don't think. Who knows? But I'm pretty sure that I would not have been in.
No, I think you're right. I think that's kind of it. It's Matt from Blue Banther Milk last week was saying that this sort of plays like one of those British dramas, and it just happens to be in this Star Wars universe that we love. And so, and Chris, you were saying before, this is, in your opinion, one of the best written shows on television.
The best.
Period. Right. The best. Period. Right now.
Absolutely.
But it's not the best action show because there's not a lot of action, right?
No, but I every episode, I'm like at the end of it, I'm like, not one bit of action. It's just fantastic tension and just amazing writing and situations that you're in that keep me going. Where I'm exhausted by the end of it, and I have to watch Ren and Stimpy or something like that afterwards, just to kind of like, bring some levity to it, But yeah.
Is it in the right place being on Disney Plus? Does this really belong on, like, say, a PBS or something like that?
Well, I think Disney Plus has become, they've extended a little bit, and I honestly think part of it was with Andor coming down the pike. They brought things like Daredevil, and some of the darker Marvel things in. So I think it does fit. I think it's important for Disney Plus to make sure that they're capturing the broadest possible audience, because it's not just going to work for just 12-year-olds forever.
Right.
Well, that's what I was super pumped up. I didn't realize how long on my Disney Plus subscription that I had the parental controls turned on, because everybody kept telling me, they were like, "Oh yeah, Daredevil's going off. Oh my God, this is very embarrassing. My alarm's going off and I forgot to take my pills. I will be right back." Dad, continue.
Amazing. And I'll jump in here just for a minute too, because it is a show, like you said, Chris, talking about the action, talking about the lack of action, but the intensity, like it's what I've kind of termed a leaner. I catch myself leaning into the screen, even for the intense conversations. Like I'm not on edge thinking, you know, are they going to fall off a building? Who's going to get shot? Who's going to get cut in half? I lean in going, what's the next line going to be? You said it earlier, Pete. I did not. And of course, I texted this to you immediately that Wednesday morning. I did not see it coming that Vel was going to be Mon Mothma's cousin.
Right.
But the things that did for me in my mind and the show, like just developing more and more what we get out of something like this. And so I guess one of my questions for Randy and for Corey is, when you stack up something like what we've gotten so far, we've gotten Mandalorian, which is, you know, a specific vibe, Western adventure of the week with an overarching, you know, theme that's going on. There's a big arc, but it's still kind of adventure of the week. We get Book of Boba Fett, which to me was very fan centric. We want to see more Boba Fett. We want to see Boba Fett blow some stuff up. We want to see Boba Fett ride a Rancor. And then we got Obi-Wan or Kenobi, which is another kind of like love letter to long-term Star Wars fans who were there for Alec Guinness, who were there for the prequels. Where does this, I'm not even necessarily asking you to rank them, but like, give me some comparisons on how these different shows hit you as a more casual Star Wars fan. You know, maybe Corey, take it first.
Yeah. So first off, I love them all. The Book of Boba, I want to tread lightly here because I know how Star Wars fans can be on the internet.
No, they don't ever have opinions.
At first, I was disappointed in Boba Fett. I liked it, but the reason that I like it is because I like the Mandalorian, and it was just the Mandalorian. It just ended up becoming the Mandalorian, which is fine. Right. And I'm glad that they pivoted because Boba wasn't really doing it for me. And here's why. Me and my buddies, we have like, you know, I'm a writer. I work in television every now and then until they tell me we're not going to do your show anymore. And then I leave for 2 years and then I write another one and they lie to me and tell me we're going to do it. And then they ultimately don't. But whatever, I work in TV. And and so me and my buddies for years have been like, man, whenever we make it, I'll tell you what we need to do is that, like, dude, nobody's doing anything with the Hutts. Like, they're a crime syndicate. There needs to be a mafia, a Star Wars show that's basically like, you know, the Sopranos or the Godfather, but with the Hutts. And so when the Book of Boba Fett got announced, I didn't know that initially, but one of my buddies that I'd always talked about this with was like, dude, I think they're doing that. Like, I think that's what is going to happen. And then I got super pumped. And then I was like, it's going to be on Disney Plus though. So it can't be the thing that I want it to be. I know that it can't. And I love The Mandalorian because I genuinely love the episodic nature of it. Episodic TV hasn't been a thing for a long time because streaming made everybody want to do serialized stuff. And I'm for that for the most part. Like, I'm loving Andor, but like, I also love shows that are just short. 30 to 45 minute episodic television is underrated now. Like Justified, that is my jam. 45 minutes is the perfect amount of time to watch television. 30 minutes is too short. An hour, please. I need to go to bed. But I loved The Mandalorian because of that, because you could just sort of drop in. But I got to tell you, I mean, Andor's number one, and this is just. Honestly, I think even if I didn't like it as much, I could objectively just go, well, look, this thing is beautiful. They've shot it amazing. You get to see all of the world. And we're finally getting to see, like, you know, Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3, we dealt with some, like, the Galactic Senate and stuff like that. And I like political thrillers and stuff, but, like, it was just about taxes and stuff. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, who cares? But, like, in this, like, you're actually getting to see, like, man, this is actually how, like, senators and congressmen actually deal with stuff. Like, we're getting a little bit, it's like we're getting a little bit of House of Cards, you know, we're getting a little bit of, you know, some Tom Clancy stuff. Like, it's just hard to beat. The acting is top notch. Like you said, there's not a lot of action, but tension is just as good for me.
Tension can be action. That's
tension can be period. Tension can be action. And when there is some action, it's pretty dope. But like, it's also, dude, it's just one of the most visually stunning shows. The sound mixing is amazing. I'm kind of a nerd about that stuff. If y'all haven't, like, put on some real super nice Bose headphones and rewatch this show, it's truly amazing, or whatever setup you got in your house. Don't just watch it on your iPad, is what I'm saying. But no, I mean, if I had to rank them, I'd say Andor, Mandalorian, Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett. That's where I'm at. But again, Star Wars nerds, they're about to light me on fire. I liked all of them. I loved seeing Ewan McGregor back so much. I thought that little girl that played Leia was just adorable, just cuter than pie. And frankly, I wanted more of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you hit the nail on the head with the House of Cards comparison, and you probably already knew this and looked it up, but Beau Willimon, who wrote House of Cards, wrote a lot of these episodes.
I did not know that.
Recently. Okay, yeah.
I did not know that. I knew that the dude that did, is that the guy that did Michael Clayton?
That's Tony Gilroy.
Okay, because I knew that the Michael Clayton
movies.
Yeah, I knew that he had done this, and that made a lot of sense to actually. Like 3 or 4 episodes in, I hadn't known that yet, and I was like, I had said that to one of my buddies in the group, and he's like, "Well, actually, that guy did those things, so that's why you think that." And I was like, "Oh, okay, right on."
Yeah, and Beau Willimon is one of the writers who wrote on House of Cards, so you're right in picking up those threads. And I think
I should work in TV, man. I've got a brain for it.
You might have a future ahead of you.
Maybe you will.
That's right. That's right. Well, Randy, what about you? Looking at, you've seen all these series. We were together at Celebration. We got to see, the beginning of Obi-Wan. As our normie, as one of our, not as deep level fans, give us your thoughts kind of on this big spectrum of this Star Wars TV thing that we've got right now.
I was noticing when Corey was giving his opinion that we have a subset now of normies. Corey is at least 2 generations behind me. I mean, I'm a normie, but I'm a normie in his mid-70s. So I look at TV a little bit different than Corey does. Sure. My attention span isn't quite as honed and tuned in as Corey's is. He shows 30 to 45 minutes. After 30 minutes, my head is hitting my desk here. So Mandalorian was great for me because the action in Mandalorian kept the head from hitting the desk, and it was awesome. Not so for Andor. I'm not going to rank the 4 of them together yet because I want to see what Andor gives us in the last 3 episodes. If I just have a feeling that in the last 3 episodes, Andor is going to give us a slam bang ending, and not necessarily in the way of action, but in the way of emotional slaps in the face. Hey, I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting that. This is absolutely awesome. Why didn't I think they were going to do that? Yeah. And once that hits, then that's going to lift Andor way up in my my evaluation of it so far.
Yeah, I think you're right about how it's going to. My big hope is that we know that just some articles just hit today. Collider spoke to Tony Gilroy, and they said that he's begun working on season 2. We know from being at Celebration. I don't know if Diego Luna knew that there was a season 2 coming. It was great to see him on stage, sort of surprised when Tony talked about that. But we know that there is a season 2 coming. That said, I am very hopeful that they don't leave this as an open-ended thing. I hope it ends satisfyingly enough so that you can say the series ended. Okay, great, right? It makes you want more. We want to see those years leading up to Andor, Rogue One, but I hope it does end with that satisfaction. And that's my only fear. Everything else has been so good, so perfect, so well written, brought together. I really hope that it closes in a very positive way. But it's interesting too because the concept of Kenobi was there, and a lot of people have been making comparisons between Kenobi, between Mandalorian, and this show. One of the big anti-Disney complaints is, well, Kenobi should have looked like this and should have been paced like. No, it's a different way of telling the story. We talked about it last week, Chris, right? It's like the difference between reading a comic book, reading a novel, watching a show, and watching a movie. It's just a different way to tell the story. Yeah. And some people still rank Mando way above Andor. Some people don't like Andor. So what was it that Hope Mullinex said to us last week? She said, Star Wars is for everyone, but not all Star Wars is for everyone. And that's a really great point. Like, look, I'm a huge fan of Clone Wars. I'm a huge fan of Rebels. I love the stories of the Jedi, but Tales of the Jedi, that series, I know a lot of people are raving about it. I probably won't watch it again. I mean, it's not that it just, but again, it's everybody's got their story and their way of getting a Star Wars story. So
I like the different tones personally. I mean, that's what keeps me interested. Like with all the Marvel movies now, Marvel is starting to get like, man, Thor sure was funny. Let's do that and everything. But like, which is fine. But like before that, it's like Captain America had his own vibe. It was sort of Andor-y, where it was a lot of political thrillers, and then Thor was fun. So I dig that. Like when I go from Star Wars to Star Wars, I'm getting kind of a different tone. Like, and that's the thing that I keep jumping back to. Like, I know I rank Andor above Mandalorian, but the great thing about Mandalorian is that every now and then I can just go put on a specific episode of Mandalorian to like go to sleep. Like sometimes I'll just randomly be like, I want to see the first Bill Burr episode. I thought it was great. I love that the Boston accent is canon now. This is awesome.
Space Boston.
We just need a canonized Georgia accent, Corey.
Well, if they will ever make Thrawn into a live action
that's right,
show,
Eli Vanto.
Because dude, that was, man, when I was listening to Thrawn on audiobook, and I had to stop and sit down when I heard them rednecks start talking. I was like, my manager needs to get on the phone right now and call Jon Favreau and be like, listen, green light Thrawn and hire this idiot.
That's going to be Eli Vanto, Space Georgia, in the house.
And I think that's all the people that's the accent for Wild Space, I think.
Sure.
Wild Space part of the galaxy.
Nice. Yep. There you go. See, it's meant to be.
Yeah. Someone who's racist to Yoda, I'll get
hired. Oh, man.
You heard it here first, guys.
So we're going to take your calls in just a minute. But before we do, make sure you'll see the link floating across the top there. Make sure to put that in, and we'll bring you in to talk to us with Corey and my dad. We want to hear your opinions on this. How are your normie friends reacting? How are you reacting to the show? Or how did you react to episode 9? How are you feeling about things? But one last question before we take a break and get to the calls. Let's talk about how the show sort of fits into. As I said last week, I haven't watched any of the other I haven't even watched the Star Wars movies since Andor has been out. This has been the only thing I've watched has been Tales of the Jedi. But it's different. It's one thing to have a different style of storytelling, but I saw a clip of Book of Boba Fett today online, and I thought it almost looks like a different universe. Does anybody feel that same way as well, or no?
Yeah, I'll take that just for a second, because it kind of relates to something that Corey was saying just a minute ago about the different styles and about the different, ways that the stories are presented. We've talked about a lot, certainly with the sequel trilogy. One of the biggest challenges, it feels like, in the sequel trilogy was the jump from J.J. Abrams to Rian Johnson.
Yep.
Eventually back to J.J., like the consistency in a vision for a movie, for a trilogy of movies. Like that's a hard thing to kind of get, rounded up and make, have that shared language. Of course, they work together. There was, it is what it is. But one of the things that, like Corey, I really appreciated about The Mandalorian, especially in that first season, was the different directors and the different styles that those different directors brought to it. I think actually the first Bill Burr episode, isn't that the prison ship episode?
Yeah. It's
where
great.
they get, that is a great horror vibe in the red hallway where like he goes in one corner and a guy pops out another thing.
Yeah.
Like,
It was like The Shining.
It was The Shining. It was very genre specific. That's one of my favorite episodes in that first season because of the tone of it. I love the way Bryce Dallas Howard shot her episodes. The Deborah Chow episodes were very action specific. Like getting that different vision gives it something that feels different, Pete. And I think that relates to, what you're just saying is, the ways that we can see these visions carried out in very specific and unique ways. And to me, that's still a really great way to tell a story.
Well, I can tell you this. I hope that they keep pumping their money into shows instead of movies. And I'm not a diss on the movies, but like, here's what movies I would like to see. I think Solo was awesome. I loved it. I think that it was bad timing. I think that it was bad press. I've rewatched that movie a lot. It was fun. Everybody did a great job. I would love to see those type of standalone movies if they want to do it, but I personally am not interested in a new trilogy right now, especially if they're going to try to somehow do like, oh, it's Luke Skywalker's adopted baby. You know, I don't want it. I mean, listen, I say I don't want it. If they make it, I will go see it. Yeah, I will go see it. But like Andor is so good, and I'm just looking at it now, and I go, this is how Star Wars stories are supposed to be told. Because when you have something, if they'd have tried to turn Andor into a movie, it would have been like, it would have been so clunky. They'd have had to fit so much stuff in, and you're going to lose a lot. Like with Star Wars characters, they're so complex. We need to be able to see that, stretch it out as much as we can. So like however many $1 billion they were going to spend on a new trilogy, just make 17 more shows. That's all I'm saying.
Keep them coming, right? Keep them coming. So all right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we are going to come back with your calls. You just saw it pop up on screen. We have the way that we're using a little behind the scenes here. We are using a new video service here, so we can only do one call at a time. So if you're trying to get through and you don't, pop in as soon as you get as soon as the previous caller goes. But we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take your calls for everybody you see here on the screen.
He's going to compliment you the entire time. He might be a little fresh.
The keystone in the arch of Star Wars.
A show that I dearly love and admire. So thanks for having me.
Sorry, I'm getting like emotional.
And you got this hulking, scary dude with the big nose and the perfect hair.
I understand. This is a safe space. This is a safe space between you and I and all of your viewers.
To Cassie and Jim on the beach, and people are like, no. I can literally hear people out go, no.
Rogue One was awesome. I love the Han Solo movie, and then of course I love The Mandalorian.
And like getting to talk to fans face to face and learn their names and just, get to hear their stories.
And in the world of Star Wars, there's a bunch of people who look different and are different species. There's lizard men. There's psychic baby swamp monsters.
I joke that the best thing about writing Princess Leia is everybody knows who she is, and the worst thing about writing Princess Leia is everyone knows who she is.
And also you get Ewoks, and I am definitely a lover of Ewoks.
You're listening to Around the Galaxy.
Yes, it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Pretty bummed to have not made the promo. Can't lie to you. I've been on the show before.
let me just clarify. The other promo that we run has the clip of Corey Ryan Forster saying, "When we were a kid, Darth Vader was the scariest thing we'd ever seen." And this guy talking about Darth Maul looks like the devil. So we got Corey.
Right on.
We got Corey.
Okay, you're forgiven.
It gets run pretty frequently. In fact, just again, peek behind the curtain, telling my kids that you were going to be on the show tonight. That was how I reminded them who you were. I was like, in the intro, the guy that talks about the devil, I was like, it's that guy. And they're like, oh, he's funny. I like him. I was like, yeah, you got it.
Around my hometown, people usually introduce me to their kids. Remember him? He's the one that talks about the devil. That's how it is here. Yeah.
Well, when you live in the South, Corey, and you know this because I'm in Alabama, that's not that uncommon. It's pretty straightforward.
No, devil gets brought up a lot.
That's right, all the time. Well, listen, we are so excited to bring in some callers. I do want to reiterate what Pete said just a minute ago. We're on a new platform. We can only have so many people in the background at one time. So if you get a message that says the number's busy, you can't get in, it's just like calling the radio station when you're a kid trying to win concert to a DZ Top concert. Just keep calling. Just keep clicking that link. We're going to get to you. We want to hear from you. Yeah, I know. It's fair. I take it. But we do have a caller hanging out in the background. So, Pete, let's get a caller intro going and let's get him in here.
Hello, what have we here?
We are excited to welcome one of our favorite callers, one of our regular callers. Jeff, how are you this evening, sir?
Good evening, gentlemen. Am I the ninth caller? Did I win the box set? Totally gonna win that box set, like Dwight Schrute.
Yeah,
totally gonna win us that box set.
Totally win the box.
Good evening, gentlemen.
You.
The South's red wine, buttercream dream. Yeah, I know you know the South's red wine here.
Absolutely, baby. Celebrate. It's always a celebration.
Right. So, in honor of me getting accused of kissing up to the hosts last week, definitely not kissing up to the guests this week.
No. That's right. We gotta
or the hosts.
I'll see you later.
That's right. I gotta go. Corey and I are
And
out.
as much as we love the non-lightsaber part of this show, you know, I'm just gonna sit here with my lightsaber. While
nice, Mace Windu.
So Jeff, talking about nerds versus normies. The episode this week. What's your quick hot take? What you got for us?
The suspense of it was epic. I found myself like sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for I can't remember Andy Serkis's character's name, but
Kino.
Wait, thank you, Raven. Yes, waiting for him to give Andor the question he was asking him like the whole episode. How many guards? How many guards? How many guards? And you could tell he was just, turn his light off, go to sleep, quit asking, quit talking. And then all that happened at the end where all that stuff happened on level 2 where they killed everybody. And it kind of dawned on him that he wasn't getting out. He kept counting how many more shifts he had. Yep. And it dawned on him that he wasn't getting out. And then he was like, no less than 12 right when the show ended. And you were like, yeah, that's good. That's what turned him.
Yep.
And that was great. So that was, but the suspensefulness of this episode, the music of it, even when what's his name, the old guy, you just knew he was about to croak when they kept having to hold him up.
Yep.
And I mean, you just knew he was a goner, and you just kept waiting for it. It was a great episode. I mean, like you said, there was no laser blast, there was nothing like that. Very little space involved in this, really at all. There's hardly any space. They're all in this. I mean, it's just, it was awesome. It reminded me of it had the kind of the tone of that Spartacus show where free, captured, in the prison, no way out, plot escape. I mean, it had Spartacus written all over it. Space Spartacus almost.
No space boobies though.
With a little less gore, language, and sex.
Yeah. Jeff, let me ask you about that scene with Kino real quick. You like I was surprised for like a moment. They're like, wow, no one gets out. Then I was like, this is the Empire. Why would I even think anything? Like, were you like that? Were you surprised? And or were you not surprised when you heard?
No, I was a little surprised by that. But the whole thing had me kind of surprised this, surprised that. When Cyril was waiting in the lobby like a stalker at Seinfeld, where Jerry and George are waiting for that girl down in the lobby. That was my comment earlier. Simon Ben Robbins, Oppenheimer, Taft. Simon Ben Robbins, Oppenheimer, Taft. Jerry's trying to remember the law firm where she worked. But that was kind of creepy, weird to me. Was him stalking her down there. Yeah. But like you said, Chris, that part did surprise me a little bit. That did surprise me a little bit.
It's so good, and I think your point is, I've heard it, and you and I've talked about it. We've texted about it. We've talked about it over beers, in recent weeks, but the building of the tension in this show, the building of the tension with Kino throughout the episode, just shut up, just be quiet. Just, he's driving and then he has the revelation that we all already got to because we saw the trumped up sentencing, the POD or whatever the order was where they changed the sentencing. We know it's coming. And then you see that light bulb go off for Andy Serkis. You see that light bulb go, oh shit, I'm not getting out of here. Like this is it. And then to end on an episode like that, again, like I said, it's a leaner. Like I leaned into it and went, oh damn. Like
I'm like, come on, Andy, make the turn. You want to make the turn. Come on. And he's so good. Andy Serkis,
he's
so
awesome, man.
Good.
Like he is just absolutely unbelievable. Like every time I see Andy Serkis in something, I always go, Andy Serkis should be in more things. And he's in plenty of things. He's in plenty of things.
But we don't always get to see actual Andy Serkis.
Him, sometimes he's a monkey.
Planet of the Apes.
We hear Andy a lot.
Whatever.
We hear Andy a lot. No, we really get to see him. And I didn't have any idea he was even in the show. And then he came into that, as the the floor manager or whatever, and I was like, "Hot damn, that's Andy Serkis."
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't. When I saw Andy Serkis, my first thought was, I was like, "Wait, is Snoke in this or something?" Because like, didn't he? I mean, didn't he voice Snoke?
Precursor.
Yeah.
It's that precursor. Yeah, they're like, I like that guy. Get him in the Project Snoke.
If half his face gets blown off before the show's over, we'll know what's up.
Exactly. Well, Jeff, it's so good to see you.
Great.
It's so good to hear from you tonight. Thanks for jumping in. We're going to get you moving along because we want to get some other callers in here.
And hopefully,
thanks for hanging out, Jeff, man. See you.
See you around, kid.
Love that. I love when we get to hear from callers. Certainly, Jeff. For Corey and Randy, for those of y'all that don't know, Jeff and I both live in the same town, so we get to hang out pretty regularly, have beers, talk about Star Wars when we can. The line is clear right now, so if you're watching, if you tried to click in a few minutes ago, hit that link at the top of the screen that's scrolling across. We've got space for another caller. We want to hear from somebody else. While we wait on another caller to jump in, I want to ask a question for Corey and for Randy. And Randy, actually, this is your question that you asked to us before we got on air, before we went live. Talking about nerds versus normies, where do you cross that line? What is the point where you go from being a normie into being a deep, sweaty nerd like Chris and Pete and I? I made the joke, or actually Pete made the joke, we kind of made it simultaneously, was when you start a Star Wars podcast, that's the easy way to go. But let me throw it to you first, Randy. What do you feel like that line is? Where is that transition?
Well, I have a test right here.
Yeah.
You see this photo?
Yes,
you know who that is?
I do.
Who does? Who said I do?
I did. It's Carolyn Blackiston, who was the original Mon Mothma.
That's right. Nice. Now, Chris, did you know?
No.
That would I know, Corey, but that would have been my guess.
Immediately wrote me off.
Honestly, the red hair would have made that my guess.
Okay. How about?
I did not know he brought pictures. Okay.
Oh, he was Boba Fett.
Yeah, there you go.
Jeremy Bullock.
Right.
Okay. What now? Right. What now, Dad?
The point being, if you can identify those pictures, you're a deep diver. You really, you really know your Star Wars. If you're scratching your head and you're saying, "What does this have to do with anything?" Well, if you like Star Wars, you're a casual fan.
I think that perfectly sums me up there because I got 1 out of 2. So I'm like,
Oh, you
know
got
what I'm
Bullock?
Yeah, I did. I knew that.
Nicely done.
So here's the thing. I think that it's like with anything, it's a spectrum. It really just depends on who you're talking to. And I say that because if you were to ask any of my friends or any of my family, they would consider me a complete deep dive nerd, right? When I'm in here with y'all, I'm not. And I get that. And I don't consider myself. But if you ask anybody else, just like when I'm in Hollywood, they think I'm the most redneck dude. But when I'm with my friend group, I'm the least redneck dude. You know what I'm saying?
I do. That's a great point.
Yeah. But so like, I think there's a line, and like I know that I'm not, but at the same time, there's plenty of people that are like, I mean, dude, I watched the original trilogy, and I like some. You're definitely a nerd. You know what I mean? But like, yeah. I'm not winning any trivia night.
Yep. That's interesting though too, because as it relates to some of the conversation happening in the fandom, and I think we need to remember that. And I've been bringing that up a lot. It seems like if I was to have a theme for my shows for 2022, it would be sort of talking about that bell curve, right? And you do have the far end of the bell curve where you got those of us who have podcasts and spend way too much time on Twitter arguing about stupid stuff, and then you have honestly the two people at the top of the screen, my dad and Corey. You guys are the target. People get pissed off when Disney doesn't make something for them. But the reality is there's only so much I can buy, right? Even if the three of us on the bottom had a $10,000 a month merch budget, which that's crazy. But even if that's only a small piece of that end, what they need is my dad buying stuff for his grandson because he sees a cool Baby Yoda and a cool Stormtrooper in Target.
Right.
They need Corey buying stuff because he's going to have a kid and he needs to buy Star Wars pajamas. That's what they want.
Yeah, that I'd buy it for my kid. You're right.
Let me back that up a minute. What they really need is for Jack to want the stuff, because Jack's granddad isn't going to buy it if Jack doesn't care about it.
Yep, that's a fair point. Yep. So, well, good, cool. So Nick,
there you go. I'm the standard. There you go.
That's right. It's you. You set the bar, as we knew when we asked you to be on. The gold standard of Star Wars is the buttercream dream. Everybody knows it. Absolutely. Well, Pete, we've got another caller in the background that I can't wait to bring in. We haven't heard from this young man in a minute, but we're always excited when he joins us. So why don't we get him in here?
Go for Papa Palpatine.
You have a collect call from
Darth Vader.
I gotta take this. Hold on.
I am excited to welcome. There he is. Seth. Our friend Seth is here. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. It's good to be here.
It has been a while, my friend.
And here's what I love about the consistency of Star Wars Twitter, the internet, these friend circles that we make. It's been a while since we've had a chance to share the screen together, but every time Seth is going to be on, he's going to be wearing that Miami Dolphins hat.
Hey, go Dolphins. Go Dolphins, baby.
The consistency, and I know that I can expect Seth to be Seth every time. We're so glad to see you.
Fins up, baby.
Fins up, brother.
Outstanding. What's on your mind tonight? What out of all of our conversations and the places we've been tonight, what's working for you?
Like has been said, a couple of times throughout this show, I've really been enjoying Andor. It's been a wonderful experience for me so far. At this point, Star Wars can, with the amount of shows that they're putting out, they can afford to diversify their storytelling styles. And this has just been able to build upon, each week in a slow process that really, each scene, like the directing style, each scene is, the main character in that scene shines, and it's just it makes for really a lot of tension in it. And I always get caught by surprise by the end of the episode, because I don't. A lot of them are almost an hour long, but
sure.
But I don't realize that. Does it seem like an hour long when I watch?
Well, the introduction is 9 minutes, and then the credits are 8. The credits are 8 minutes.
Corey's already established that the introduction is the problem.
No, I mean, I thought about it because when I started to watch, I was like, oh, these are long. But then I started doing the math, and seriously, the recap and the intro averages about 4, and then the credits are about 7. So you can take off about 12 minutes of what it actually says. So it's more actually into my dream zone of your 45 to 50 minutes.
Yep.
There you go.
And that also comes from a very real and raw place for Corey, who's just spent the last 2 days walking 20 miles watching this.
Not 2 days. I did that today,
One
brother.
day.
Yeah, I did that today, brother. For you, my friend. I love this show.
I would say hats off to you for your sacrifice.
So Gallinari, where have you run into in your circles people who are like, I don't know if I should watch the show. I've heard things about the show. Is it right for me? Have you had any of those kinds of conversations? And what's your response been?
The response has mainly been there's people who absolutely love it, and then there's people who are a little bit indifferent to it. Like it's like I've really enjoyed it. Like, and most of the main people that I talk to have really enjoyed it. But like, I know it's, like I said, it's not a show maybe for everybody, but I think for the intended audience, it's something that hits a lot of the right notes.
Without a doubt. And it's one of those ones that my dad, Pete, you and I, again, we talk about this because we text every day. My dad is, essentially the equivalent to you, Randy. Like, my dad introduced me to sci-fi, connected me up to these fandoms, these things I loved, introduced me to it. But he's also not where I am. He may be watching tonight. So, Dad, if you're watching, cheers. Happy Friday.
Hey, Dad.
But the example I go back to all the time, and Pete, you use the same one because it happened when Ahsoka showed up in The Mandalorian the first time in live action. When he called me, as he always does, anytime there's a new episode of Star Wars TV or whatever, his comment was, "Yeah, that new Jedi with the 2 lightsabers, she's pretty cool." And I was like, I don't know how to properly, like, I'm pretty sure I was standing in the middle of like Academy Sports when he called me that, like buying things for work. And I'm just like, I don't know, have enough time to adequately freak out about how cool she really is and how to explain to you who this character is and what she means, and how even for me as an original trilogy kid at 44 years old, like, she's one of my all-time favorite Star Wars characters. But it creates that same idea of you can show up and enjoy it and not have to be invested in every episode of Clone Wars and Ahsoka leaving the Order and how she showed up in Rebels. Like, you can just go, man, she's awesome. I can't wait to see more.
Right.
Yeah, they actually do. Star Wars does a better job of that than Marvel does, in my opinion.
Correct.
And now with Marvel, I have seen every single movie. I've seen every single show. I have been an avid reader of the comics since I was a kid. I still read, honestly, 10 to 15 comics a night. So, like, I try to be a completionist, but, like, even me, every now and then, I'm like, guys, everybody in this room don't know what is just going on right now. They have no idea. And you can't expect someone to watch 25 movies before they go into Doctor Strange so that this is going to happen. And Disney, like you said, like Ahsoka showed up, I knew who she was, but if you didn't, it didn't matter. It's totally fine.
Right. It didn't matter. She was still awesome. And I think we're going to get that certainly with the Ahsoka series, but like in the Ahsoka series, we're going to get Thrawn. We're going to get, we get the name drop in Mandalorian, but for everybody who isn't me, who read Heir to the Empire in the 90s and loved that book, and then, read the new Thrawn movies and watched, Rebels and those kinds of things, like, there are people still going to be like, holy shit, this guy with the blue face and red eyes, he's awesome. Like,
yeah, he's great.
It's still going to pay off for Randy and for Dan Milkey and for, everybody else that's going to get to experience that character for the first time. So it is really neat that we can do that. Seth, it's so good to see you. It's so good to have you pop back on, hang out with us. We hope to see you again soon. We're going to get you moving. Hopefully we can get somebody else if we've got any other callers hanging out and anybody wants to call in. So happy Fridays to you, my friend.
Good to see you, man.
Happy one to you. Yeah, guys, have a good one.
Good to see you, dude. Go Dolphins.
Yeah.
Godspeed, rebels.
Another excellent caller.
That was a blast from the past. That was great. It was good to see him.
That's right. So good to see him. If anybody else is hanging out, if you want to call in, the waiting room is empty. I can see it right here off to the left. We've got space. We'd love to hear from you. I know we've still got friends hanging out in the chat. We'd love to hear from Raven, JD, any of our regular friends.
I'm on the spot.
Watching. Yeah, I'll call them out. I'm not afraid,
I was gonna say, while we wait, why don't we throw a point to anybody here to take this question, because this is one of the ones from the article that my dad wrote, and that is this Star Warsy enough, and does it matter, right? And maybe we'll bring in our caller to answer that, but let me throw it to you, Chris. I mean, because you're the one saying this show is the best show on television right now. It doesn't matter. Does it matter that it's not Star Warsy, or is it Star Warsy and people?
It's Star Wars.
Yeah.
I consume so much different Star Wars media, from the comics to the books. You could put it in a Viewmaster and I will watch it. You old know what I'm talking about. But you can put it in any kind of denomination. I'm going to watch. I'm going to enjoy it. Just from reading the novels alone, this show is very much Star Wars.
Yeah.
Absolutely Star Wars.
Excellent. Well, cool. Well, we do have a caller, right, Chris?
Yep, we do. Let's do it.
All right.
We have joining us our favorite Canadian who always battles Canadian internet issues. Danny, how are you? It's so good to see your face.
What's wrong with y'all's internet up there?
It's the cold weather, I blame.
Yeah, right.
That's right. The cold slows it down every time.
Yeah.
How are you?
Not too bad. I fell today on the ice, so I'm recovering. And so
Oh,
don't mind me as
cool.
I wear my Eastern German sweatpants and
Well, we're just glad
if
you're here.
If there's anything more Canadian that could be said on this stream right now, it's I fell on the ice today. So
The only thing that would be more
representing
yeah, the only thing that would be more Canadian is if she apologized to the ice.
Exactly. Danny, what are your thoughts on our conversation tonight? Any of the different things we've hit on? Where you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that one of the things that I really fully appreciate about Andor is the level of character exploration and characterization. Like even the ancillary characters and the little side characters, I feel like I know about them. They're not just kind of like space fillers for the screen.
Right.
And I really appreciate that. My thinking today, and I was kind of reminded about Solo, is I'm thinking to myself that these kind of stories where they're taking risks and showing Star Wars, I mean, everybody always says, show me something new in Star Wars. And then when they get it, they complain.
They lose their mind. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that the Disney Plus format in many ways is the perfect venue to explore these different things. And you don't necessarily need to have the same level of audience that the movies do, because there's less risk in putting it on Disney Plus than putting it on movie. Like I think that if you had put Solo on Disney Plus, if Disney Plus had existed, we'd already have the Crimson Dawn and the Kira spinoff by now, or it'd be in production.
Yep.
You're preaching. Chris just went to church. Like Chris is having a moment right now. Yeah, you're exactly right. And it's the investment, the risk versus the reward. I think about, and I thought about this earlier when we were talking about the different styles and versions. Star Wars Visions. We got that back, this summer or spring, whenever it was. I'm not an anime person. I never have really watched an anime in my life. Star Wars Visions was fantastic, but I know so many people who love anime that were like, oh, holy crap, like this is my time. Like my moment has arrived. And you have somebody like Chris. I see Chris again, raising your hand, testifying in church here. But we get the opportunity for Disney to explore those different avenues. And Danny, I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to say too, I also appreciate the fact, I read the blog and I appreciate the fact that Papa Fletcher is a Columbo fan, because I'm a big Columbo fan.
All right.
And
I have to tell you, right now I'm reading 3 different Columbo compendia at the same time. And the reason I'm doing it is because each day after work, I watch a different Columbo episode, and then I go to the compendia, the 3 different opinions on the episode, and it's fascinating. It's great.
You realize
I have like a Columbo game board.
A Columbo game board?
Yeah, from the 1970s. I found it at a garage sale.
Amazing.
Sorry, I'm side nerding here, but anyway.
That is awesome.
I feel like I'm going to get a call after this from my dad saying, hey, I want to start a Columbo podcast. Can you help me out?
You know what? Can I just say, I think, one of the things we kind of touched on too is the format of the show. I think there's different schools of thought of what constitutes, because you've got the school of thought that maybe these should be released either all at one time, or at least the arcs all at one time. So instead of having these arcs split up into 3 episodes of 60 minutes each, give us a 3-hour episode of an arc, or and it kind of Columbo in many ways, your dad was saying in the blog, it's got that kind of 1.5-hour story where it starts and we know who the killer is, and then we watch first we watch the murder. Then we watch Columbo knowing right away who that murderer is. And then we see the development, and then we see the end. And it's in an 1.5 hours, and it's a satisfying little story. And I think maybe part of the criticisms of Andor is that, because I mean, it's excellent. It's top tier. It's moving into top 3 of all time Star Wars for me. That's how much I love it. I even like it more than Rogue One so far.
Wow.
I know.
But and I know those are bold words, but it's still going to be
love
below.
it though.
It's still going to be behind The Force Awakens and New Hope for me, but that's not neither here nor and Attack of the Clones. But that's neither here nor there. The point being is that I think maybe some of the I think when you have 3-story arcs, there's always going to be that, there's you've got to do the establishment. And so there's that one episode that feels like it's the establishment episode. Then the middle episode feels like, the transition episode, which everybody hates transition episodes in general. And then there's the finale conclusion, which is epic. And I think people don't really have the attention span to play out these arcs in such a way. So maybe for some people, I think it would be more satisfying if we just had longer arcs, every arc told from beginning to end in one sitting.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that's fair. I mean, that's why I think if they released Andor, the first episode only on September 21st or August, whatever day that was going to be, I think even those of us here who are big fans would have been like, I don't know how I feel about this.
Agreed.
It wouldn't have hit as hard.
Yep.
Hard agree.
Giving you all 3 and letting you walk away from it with like, wow, I see how this is going to work. Very different.
Move.
No, I agree, because I wasn't sold after the first episode, but like being someone who's, I know how hard it is to write a pilot. Like I've had to do it a lot. And so I always give any first episode grace, knowing that I'm like, listen, first episode, you've got to just lay out the facts for me. You got to lay a lot of pipe. I totally understand. But yeah, I think that it was definitely smart for them to put all 3 out there. But aside, a lot of people are complaining because we live in such a world that everybody wants to binge. Put it all out at once. I got to tell you, I like that some shows still do that, but I love that we're getting back to weekly releases, because I miss water cooler television. And you get that when it comes out every week, because when they put something out all at once, no one knows exactly how many episodes everybody's on, so you can't really talk about it. But when it's like this, if somebody's watching, it's like we can discuss this episode, like this podcast can exist. If they'd have put them all out binging, I don't know how y'all would have handled that, because you wouldn't have been able to just talk about, all 12.
We'd have done a 3-hour episode.
Dadgummit, which, by the way,
and I say all the time, if you give it to me all at once, I'm going to watch it all.
Well, me
at
too.
So it's a defensive position for me as a whole. Like I love watching Wednesday, talking about it on Friday. Yeah, go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, let me throw out a daring thought here. Suppose instead of throwing out the new episode the same time every week, suppose they took the story arc and threw out episode, let's say 7. And I'm just shooting off the top of my head, on Wednesday, and then episode 8 on Thursday, and then episode 9 on Friday, and then let you digest that. And then the following Wednesday, they throw out the next story arc. Thursday, Friday, something like that.
I like that.
And can I add one more layer that I think is really important? And I think it's what's been undermining all of the Disney Plus releases. Can you release the goddamn thing on a Friday evening?
Agreed.
I'm sorry, but it comes out at I'm in Mountain Standard Time, so it's like 1 a.m. I gotta work on Thursday. I gotta get up at 5:30 to get to work. Screw that nonsense.
Yep.
I think the ratings and the hype and everything would be coming out is if you release it at 7 p.m. whatever day in the American market where the majority of Star Wars fans are, and then you're going to get a bigger audience and bigger hype. Well, but if you're releasing it at 1 a.m, that's that.
I think that helped.
Watch it when they get around to it.
I think that helped House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon hit at 9 o'clock East Coast time. I watched it at 9 o'clock and then started talking about it immediately. And there was also that sort of group watch opportunity. And to your point, yes, I know my UK friends are not going to be happy about that. But the reality is, you're right. If you do a 9 o'clock release East Coast time, you know 6 o'clock West Coast, then you have this opportunity to you're gonna have viewing parties. You're gonna have people talking about it immediately. You're gonna light the fire for the show a lot earlier.
It goes back to the water cooler thing that Corey talked about. Like it gives you the opportunity to engage in a community about something that a group of people may want to watch together.
And it gives you something to look forward to. Like this country has been absolutely shit for so long, and it's so nice to have something to look forward to, something to get me through this hellish facade that I call a life in a week. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And got a new episode. It's wonderful.
Yep.
Like my communal experience with Star Wars fans shouldn't be sitting on the toilet at 3 a.m. Sorry,
Totally fair. Totally fair.
Well, Danny, that's my rant. And I also just think that too, the great thing about it is that you see a little bit of yourself in every character, even the bad ones. Like, I'm sorry, I can as someone who's worked 25 years in a mostly male dominated environment, I relate to Dedra in a visceral way.
No doubt about it. Yeah, it's so powerful, and that's the beauty of, again, Corey said it, I think Randy said it, Pete said it, I've said it, like getting a wide variety of stories and story styles allows us all as Star Wars fans, whether we're nerds, whether we're normies, whether we're somewhere in between or on the far side of either of those spectrums, we're able to see ourselves somewhere in that story. And that's what connects it to us, whether we get it all at once, whether we get it on a week-to-week basis, whether we have to wait. What drives us and compels us is we go, good storytelling reflects me in it somewhere. And I think that's where the power in this show definitely is.
Great.
Excellent.
Outstanding.
So, Papa Fletcher, if you ever want to start a Columbo podcast, I'm your gal.
Oh, you bet.
There you go. That's right.
I'll subscribe day one.
Made. That's right. We're matchmaking Columbo podcasts right here on.
Do we do the movies too, or just the original TV series?
Well, we start with the original TVs, and then we have our discourse about the 90s era and the movies. Yes,
right.
But you got to start with the classic, like Robert Culp episodes and
Jack Cassidy.
Oh, Jack Cassidy! Oh my God, I love that guy.
All right, we're gonna have
dragging these guys away.
We're gonna have to connect you two for sure.
We're gonna have to get in a room. Danny, it's so good to see you. Thank you so much for calling in. We always love talking to you and hearing from you.
Great to see you, Danny. Take care.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you, Danny.
Goodbye, old friend. May the force be with you.
That was lovely.
So great.
So good.
Yeah, we haven't heard from her in a while. It's great to see her on screen, hanging out with us.
Always good when we can work Columbo into a Star Wars show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we are going to tag Columbo when we drop this.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna go ahead and wholeheartedly guarantee there's not another part of Star Wars Twitter, podcasting, internet, or anywhere else where you're going to get a Star Wars and Columbo crossover. It's not going to happen.
Well, I'll tell you, having become a fan of Dad throughout being with him on the podcast here, and I respect his taste, I'm definitely going to start watching Columbo. I've never entertained it. But I'm serious. Like I'm going to Google where I can stream it, and I'm watching an episode of Columbo tonight because if you like it, by God, it must be good.
Tell me what you think of it through Pete or through Nick or Chris.
You got it. I will.
Without a doubt. Gentlemen, this has been a fantastic night. We've gotten to talk about a bunch of stuff. We've gotten to talk about Andor. We've gotten to talk about what it means to be a nerd versus a normie. I can't thank all of you enough for being here. Certainly, Randy and Corey, thank you for being a part of this conversation, hanging out, sharing us. I would ask Randy where people could find you, because this is the part of the show where we do plugs and that kind of thing. I'm guessing that really Randy's answer to where can people find you is through Pete. So
yeah, if you have a comment,
that's the correct answer. I don't have a website of my own or anything like that.
So. That's right. Well, but I will say this: if you're watching and you haven't had a chance to go to atgcast.com and read the guest blog post that Randy wrote about the 8 reasons why Andor may or may not be working for some people, definitely go check it out. It's a great post. I really appreciate the things that you wrote. And it's clear where Pete's writing and critical thinking skills and that kind of stuff comes from.
If
the
I
apple
can-
doesn't fall far from the tree.
If I can add to that, though, the piece that I wrote was based on the idea that Andor might be failing.
Yep.
As it turns out, Andor probably is not failing, which means take my piece after you read it, give it a good chuckle, and throw it away because it doesn't mean anything.
But it's still good and it still has valid points. So read it, tuck it in your back pocket, and kind of just think of it fondly. We'll do it that way. Let's do this next. Corey, what you got going on, man? Where can people find you?
Well, on all the socials at Corey R. Forster or whatever. I don't really care about that. I mean, I do. That's where you can find me to promote the things that I actually care about, which is parttimefunnyman.com. It is my it's my Substack. It's my subscriber-based situation. It's $5 a month, but as I always say, if you can't afford it because of whatever bills, you got too many kids, or I don't care. Just email me at buttercreamcorey@gmail.com and I'll comp you. No questions asked. Don't matter. I do essays. I write some comedic history pieces. I do videos. I'm adding several new podcasts, and I just hired a producer, and we're about to get into the animation world in some form. I'm trying to do a lot of stuff because I want to entertain everybody. And I thought, you know what? All the people that subscribe to my blog probably have kids, and so I'll do like a kids show for them, animated. So like I'm just trying to figure out a way to take I've been doing stand-up for 18 years, but I don't want to be on the road and be a dad because I've just seen that too many times. So I'm just like, well, I'm not going to just quit what I do for a living. I'm just going to do it at my house. You know what I mean? So that's what I got going on, parttimefunnyman.com. I'm super passionate about it, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Absolutely. And I will just say, as a personal testimony, having had Corey on my show, connected over the last, several months, and him being patient enough to put up with me, I've been a fan of his for a long time. His comedy is great. His commentary is great. Like, there's political commentary. There's a crossover between comedy and political commentary, and part of the reason why we love things like The Daily Show. As somebody who lives in the Deep South, the Corey that I get to see is the Corey and the world that I live in. Like, there's so much good stuff there. Y'all, please check Corey out. You won't be disappointed. So much great good stuff there.
Well, thank you so much. I'm flattered.
Of course. And I'm still also hiding in my back pocket the Nick and Corey watch TV shows like Justified and Breaking Bad and Sopranos. So that's another thing for another time.
One day, brother. Well, I mean, I'm telling you, if I really do get off the road, I'm going to have to line up a bunch of podcasts to keep the lights on. So I'm for it.
I got you. Christopher, what's Bro Axiom got going on right now?
Well, let's see. Monday will be the premiere of Reading Rain Bro. This is Dan's thing where where we're going to be reading Star Wars comics. We have a few different people: Kyle Katar, myself, Mike Broker is going to be in it playing Luke Skywalker. I still don't understand that one. But
I'm in it, Chris. I'm in it, Chris.
After Pete's in it as the best Jabba ever.
Well, now I'm just disappointed that I'm not in it. So
yeah, I will talk to Dan about that. Listen,
don't.
This is not my thing. This is Dan's show.
Well, all right. So here's the problem. Dan's a Philly guy, and I'm a Braves fan. So now I know where the prejudice comes from. That's it. Right off the bat.
There it is. There it is.
Stupid
Dan. Tuesday we have our Quick Shots of Bro Axiom, which is our Star Wars comics preview show. This week we have Marvel's High Republic from Phase 2, the new one, the second issue of that, and Dark Horse's what is that called again? Hyperspace Stories, which is like an anthology series. And I think this one is Finn and Poe. So I'm all about that. So I can't wait to see that. And Star Bros just put out a new episode. Just talking about the last couple episodes of Andor and Halloween and all that stuff. And it's really good. That's Star Wars Easy Listen. I love those guys. And of course, every Sunday, Shooting the Poodoo live on our YouTube channel. It's not for the kids. It's a lot of fun, though.
It is a whole lot of fun. Awesome. Pete? what do you got? ATG cast. What's happening for us?
You did a great interview last night, which I want you to talk a little bit about. But in a couple of weeks, we just dropped this past week a conversation with Mesa Windu, who is the man has over 1 million followers on TikTok. I did not know that. I hung out with him on Twitter. We had some great conversations. But I have to say, if you check out this latest episode of Around the Galaxy, that's what I want Around the Galaxy to be. It's literally 2 Star Wars fans just hanging out, just talking Star Wars, and not at the deep nerdy level, just like bar level talk of Star Wars. But Nick, you did a great interview yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. This coming Thursday on the ATG Cast podcast stream, Podcast of the Wheels, my guest was Tim Barnes. Tim is a comedy writer as well. He has written for Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. He wrote a YouTube short and series. He's written for Comedy Central. He wrote a series called Maurice on Mars, which is an animated series that's really funny. And he is also one of the hosts of the Yub Nub podcast with our friend Greg Iwinski and another gentleman that I'm blanking on his name. I'm so sorry. But we had another, again, great conversation. 2 Star Wars fans talking about Star Wars, digging into, how do we connect with it? Where does it hit us on a deeper level? What does it mean to us? So lots of good stuff coming up. That'll be this next Thursday. And then we'll be back again next Friday for another episode of Streaming Star Wars.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out with us. Thank you, Corey. Thank you to my dad.
Yep.
Thank you to everybody who hung out in the chat with us tonight. We will see you next week. And Nick, may the force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.